Amazing Lucas's videos have largely escaped my attention, but I'm not sure why. When it comes to half-baked conspiracy theories and lunatic fringe cognition, Amazing Lucas can hold his own against Rashad Richey and Dr. Umar, Richard Taylor, and others of his ilk. Lucas is perhaps a tad smarter than them, and he's definitely more articulate. But he's still an extremist of the highest order. In this video, he flies off the rails, advocating violence while not advocating violence. You'll see what I mean shortly. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
Rodney Hinton Jr. did nothing wrong. So let me just say that this is what's supposed to happen. Okay, everyone? Let me just rewind that for those of you in the back who may be hard of hearing. This is what's supposed to happen every single time.
Remember, he says this is supposed to happen. Not an unfortunate consequence, but something that should happen.
Y'all have gotten too accustomed to going out and kumbayaing and doing marches and everything, and we're going to protest. And no. You have to understand that when it comes to the lineage of evil, when it comes to these demons, there's ways to communicate to them.
This is just a raw, open call to violence. There's no doubt that he's claiming that picking out a random cop to murder is the only effective way to deal with police brutality. Mind you, Rodney Hinton didn't even kill the cop that was involved in the shooting of his son. That cop didn't even work for the same police force. But in Lucas's mind, Rodney's violent act should be the modus operandi for future shootings. Next, he will backtrack off his statement, which is his usual pattern. Say something grossly inflammatory that directly encourages others to commit acts of violence, then claim, "I'm not saying that." Watch.
And they've communicated to the rest of the world throughout history, if you study it, and they have come, as scripture says, to kill, steal, and destroy. They have ways of communicating with them, okay? And what Rodney Hinton Jr. was attempted to communicate with these demons in order to curb their behavior. That's as simple as that.
So he's now advocating terrorism. I mean, this is the very definition of terrorism. An act carried out to send a message to terrify the public into changing its policies. Mind you, he's not claiming he will do it. He doesn't have that kind of courage. That would mean being possibly killed in the attempt or incarcerated. No, he's hoping that you do it.
Because what many of these individuals want, and I just want to be clear, I did a video on, that individual, that other demon, and her fundraising off of just racist behavior. And I want you to understand, if you think that there weren't officers who donated to her campaign, you are sadly mistaken. Okay, you are sadly mistaken.
And who should you kill? Demons. So he's specifically hoping that someone targets that woman who raised a bunch of money using a racial slur, as if that's the worst thing that anyone has ever done.
Now, what I also want to say is that I am in no way, shape, or form advocating for any type of violence. Absolutely not, because...
But you are. We're not in kindergarten. We weren't born yesterday. You are clearly justifying terrorist vigilantism. You claim it's the only way to communicate with the demons you target. There's no other way to interpret it. I mean, suppose I published a video where I said, it would be a terrible thing if someone decided to assassinate the mayor of Chicago. Boy, that would be terrible. Although that would be the only way for us to get through about the evilness of his policies. Who among us wouldn't recognize the obvious intent of my video?
That is the language of this lineage of evil. That is the language of these demons. I'm advocating for something that is absolutely foreign to them, and that is justice. That is correct. What I'm advocating for is justice.
No, you're calling for violence. Sure, you can say you're not, but a crow can say the words. And you might think,
you see, he's not calling for violence. He's calling for justice.
Well, what does he mean by justice? Get ready.
Because what they have used, unfortunately, is the scripture, and they've used the scripture to torment and to cripple many black generations. I'll say generation after generation after generation. They tell you to turn the other cheek, as when you turn the other cheek, they smack that cheek as well, okay? They go and tell you to, well, you have got to forgive, right? You've got to forgive when it came to Botham Jean, and then go crazy hell over Ashley Babbitt.
Now he brings up Ashley Babbitt. The cop who shot Ashley may have legitimately feared for the lives of others, and Ashley may have had some bad intentions about breaking into the Capitol. But I don't think there's any evidence that Ashley was out to kill people that day. I mean, she didn't even bring a gun. So why use her as an example? Because he isn't driven by a sense of justice. He's driven politically. Ashley was a J6er, MAGA. In his mind, that makes her a demon worthy of shooting. The crazy thing is that she was shot by a cop who claimed self-defense, the very category of those he considers demons. Hypocrisy is a way of life among the race hustlers.
I want you to understand, please do not allow them to use the scripture to cripple your mind into subjugation, okay? Please don't allow that to happen, because that has happened to, generations before us, our family members, our mothers, our grandparents. We've seen that. I've seen that. And unfortunately, that's what they've done, and that's what they are continuing to use. And when it comes to this whole talk about segregation, because that's a new thing that these racists and these demons want to talk about. Oh, we got to segregate. We got to segregate. I'm sorry, what? What are you talking about? We tried to have our own towns. We tried to have our own businesses. We tried to have our own families. And what did y'all do? Y'all, every single time, stuck your nose into it.
Actually, I think the pendulum has swung in the other direction. It's not whites calling for segregation today. It's blacks. But not all blacks, just a small minority. The vast majority of blacks have no use for arguments like this. They're law-abiding people just trying to make it through the rest of the day like everyone else. But did any of you notice the hypocrisy in his claim? White people are evil because they want to segregate. Segregation is terrible. But every time we try to segregate, other races get involved and ruin it for us. If you want a truly segregated community, they have them in Africa. In fact, the country of Liberia was founded on segregation. And it is truly a black-run community. But you probably don't want to live there. Watch the Vice documentary, The Cannibal Warlords of Liberia, sometime. You won't believe it.
So it has nothing to do with them, oh, I don't want to be around black people. If they weren't around black people, they would lose their minds because they hate themselves. So the only way that they can cope with hating themselves is to look for someone else. And here we are. We are their forever scapegoat.
You're the one that just got done telling us that all your black segregated communities fail because of white people. Gee, looks like white people are not the only ones that look for scapegoats.
If the child didn't get an A on the test, black person. If they didn't get the job, black person. If they find out that they, aren't as talented and skillful as they believe themselves to be, black person. That's always how it boils down to it.
How about BLM always using cops as scapegoats for the stupidity and violence of black criminal suspects? Micaiah Bryant pulls a knife and tries to stab another girl to death and gets smoked by a cop. But it's not her fault. No, it's the cops. Because he didn't use superhuman powers to stop her attack in time. It's not Michael Brown's fault that he stole cigars and attacked a cop. Ryan Hinton flees a stolen vehicle carrying a gun, but it's not his fault that he got shot. No, it must be the cops. If you think I'm exaggerating, consider Tyree Nichols. They focused their ire on Preston Hemphill, who wasn't even at the scene. Why? Because they needed a white scapegoat to escape the embarrassment of seeing 5 black police officers beating the stuffing out of a suspect.
Black person, and the reason for the black person is usually the Jewish person. That is their mindset. Unfortunately, it's a perpetual mindset of victimization. They are perpetual victims, even though that has never happened in this country's history.
Yeah, people of color never claim to be victims. No. Okay.
Having said that, when it comes to Rodney Hinton Jr., for those of you who may not know, Rodney Hinton Jr. was a loving, caring father who happened to have lost his son due to, gang members with badges. That's what they are, due to state soldiers, okay? And upon seeing the body cam of his son being taken from them, he went out and indiscriminately sent an officer on his way. That's what we'll say. And I just want to be clear. Many people are saying, well, Lucas, was it the officer who took his child from him? No. And I want to put this in perspective.
Whenever he tries to put something in perspective, it's a call to justify a violent stance.
They did not know that was Rodney Hinton's junior son. They didn't know. There was no rhyme or reason as to, well, we're going to attack his son. So it is absolutely reasonable what Rodney Hinton Jr. did. He did the same thing they did to his son. Indiscriminate yeeting, we'll say. That's exactly what he did. So he didn't know the officer that he sent along his way into the afterlife, just as they didn't know the son that they took and sent along to the afterlife. Now, what?
There's your justice. All that malarkey about,
I'm not calling for violence. I'm only calling for justice.
it's pretty clear now, isn't it? He's coming right out and saying it. Justice is eye for an eye, vigilantism. And it doesn't even have to be the one accused of the transgression. That's what's really sick about this. Just pick someone else out. Because this is about bloodlust, revenge. So if a black person kills my wife, should I go out and pick any black person and kill them? Is that how this works? Oh, wait. That would be somehow different. Because whatever sense of justice he has, the law of the jungle only applies to others. It doesn't apply to him or those of his group.
What I would argue, perhaps y'all should be a little more careful with who you target, because not every father is going to have a rally. Not every father is going to have a protest and a conference. Some of these fathers are going to go, let's just say, they're going to go the Punisher route. That's what they're going to go. And
what about the family of Deputy Henderson? Should the son now be able to seek out a member of Rodney Hinton's family and exact justice? Or how about just some random black male? Would that be okay? And of course, it's ludicrous to justify this kind of stance.
And I think, once again, not advocating for any form of violence, I'm advocating for justice. That's how that works.
By advocating for justice, you're advocating for vengeful violence. The two are the same thing in your mind.
I just want you to understand. And what the racists are going to say, because I can already hear them screaming, oh, well, Lucas, what about the body cam? What about the body? Let me just be clear. In the body cam footage, not in any point in time did his son point a gun at the officers. Did he have a gun? Absolutely. That is his Second Amendment right to have a gun.
When cops see a gun pointed at them, they don't see black or white. They don't care. Both races are equally adept at pulling the trigger. It's pretty certain that Ryan was carrying a gun, and therefore highly possible that he pointed the gun at the cop. The video footage is too blurry to say one way or the other. All we really have is the officer's testimony. One more thing. Whether or not Ryan Hinton had a Second Amendment right to carry the gun is irrelevant. This is self-defense. If you reasonably fear serious bodily injury, you don't care whether the other person had a permit to carry the gun. It doesn't matter. And it shouldn't. I have a CCW. Who reasonably believes that I can go around shooting people and they can't defend themselves because I have a valid CCW permit?
Now, I want you to understand, the issue is not his son having a gun. That's not the issue. The issue is with a black son having a gun. As we've seen time and time before, I've done videos on this. We had a woman, I think it was Briston, she went into the police department with a gun, fired the gun. Listen to me. She went into a police department with a loaded firearm, fired the gun. They took her. She's safe and sound. They took her in. They took her into custody.
I did a video on this. The officers were standing behind bulletproof glass. They didn't fire back because they had no way of doing so without exposing themselves to her gunfire. This is yet another case where race hustlers got the facts wrong. They went out and apprehended her after she left the gun behind. They all saw that she was not armed. There was no reason to shoot her. This is another case where the race hustlers simply got it all wrong. They always do.
So I can go on and on and on about stories like this.
The race hustlers never mentioned Corey Ali Muhammad. He was a black Islamic fundamentalist who murdered 4 white people in Fresno, California. He killed them because they were white. He said that. He was taken alive. How is that possible? As I've always said, it isn't the crime that gets you shot by the cops. It's how you react to those trying to arrest you. In the case of Corey, he tried to shoot the cops. They took him alive anyway. How do you explain that?
The issue is never, let me just be clear, the issue is never the gun or the behavior. The issue is dealing with a black person. That is the issue time and time again, and I'm not making it racial.
No, you're not making it racial. You just said, and I quote, the issue is dealing with a black person. How is that not racial? But it gets dumber.
I'm not looking to make it racial. I'm colorblind, okay? I just see, men and women. That's all I see. But I just happen to notice, okay? I'm not making it racial, but I am making an observation. And that observation seems to be that when it comes to non-melanated people, you guys happen to have a certain behavior, a certain calmness, a certain somberness about you in how you handle, let's just say, their inappropriate behavior. That's what we'll say.
You claim to be colorblind, and you claim that you're just making an observation that cops treat people of color more harshly than others. How can you make that observation if you're colorblind? Like I say, the dude is a walking contradiction. But this is the problem with the race hustlers. The foundations of their opinions are too weak for them to formulate a consistent stance on anything. The foundations of their opinions are too weak for them to formulate a consistent stance on anything. They don't want to be considered supremacists, but they point out they don't want to be considered supremacists, but they want to point out how black people are better than whites. They don't want to be called racist, but they push every stereotype of white people. I can't handle any more of this, and YouTube shouldn't allow such open calls for violence to be published. It wouldn't take much for one of his minions to act on his sense of justice and exact revenge on some innocent soul as revenge for a societal wrong. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.